Today I'm going to be showing you how to change the carburetor jet in the new Predator 5000. We won't be removing the carburetor, and this is not that hard of a job. And we'll also talk a little bit if you really need to change the jet, and also some benefits about propane, more at the end of this video. The first step is to make sure the generator switch is in the off or stored position. The tools we're going to need are going to be a Phillip and a flathead, and also a 12mm socket, and it would be helpful to have this shallow socket, that way the bolt doesn't drop all the way to the bottom. This will just make things a little bit easier versus that deeper socket. Go ahead and remove the side panel that has the carburetor on it and air box. Next, we need to drain out the remaining fuel in the float bowl or fuel cup. Get yourself a container and a Phillips screwdriver and open up the fuel screw that is on the bottom of the carburetor float bowl. Drain this out until it is completely empty. And then after that, go ahead and tighten the screw back up, but do not over tighten, as you can break these off. It's just a snug fit. Go ahead and place a towel down underneath the carburetor, as this will help catch any remaining fuel and also any screws that you might drop, which will make it a lot easier to retrieve later. Next, we need to remove the propane actuator cable, and this is just simply by pulling up on the cable gently and then sliding out the little stop that is inside the actuator lever. Remove the airbox cover, as this will give you just a little bit of extra room, and sometimes that's all you need. Next, we're going to remove two screws underneath the carburetor, one on each side of the plunger for the propane actuator. This little right angle screwdriver is actually handy to have, and after you're done breaking the screws loose, then I use it as a finger screwdriver. I'll leave a link below as to where to pick one of those up. After you get the screws out, you can just remove these by hand, and careful not to drop these down below. After you take out the second screw, there is a little metal bracket that is actually a plunger stop. And be sure not to drop this, as I show you here, but again, this is one reason to have that towel, as it makes it easy to retrieve. Next, we're going to remove the propane plunger. This stops the fuel when the propane switch is activated. This just slides out from the little actuator lever, and then we can go ahead and set this aside, but it is a good idea to check it and inspect it for any damage just in case. And then underneath this little lever right here, there's that 12mm bolt, which will remove the fuel cup. Lift up the lever with one finger while putting the socket underneath and then feeling around for it to catch. All you have to do is break this bolt loose, and then again you can take off the socket and kind of use it as a hand driver, as it makes it a little bit easier and also quicker. Once you get this fully loosened up, it'll pretty much stay inside the socket, and now the fuel cup will come down. And be sure to keep an eye out for the black O-ring. It could be stuck up under there, but it may fall down later, and we'll have to reinstall that. Now we need to remove the jet, which is up inside this pickup tube. Go ahead and get the right angle screwdriver again with a flathead and rotate this until you feel it catch. Once you feel it catch, then you can go ahead and break it loose again. This is where you can then remove the screwdriver and use it as a hand screwdriver again to drop out the jet that's inside the pickup tube. Now when removing the jet, a small mixing tube may come out as well, which again, if it drops out, the towel saves you. So this right here can be installed backwards, so you want to make sure that the fat part that has two rings goes down, and then the jet really can only go in one way, as the slot will be facing down. And now choose the appropriate jet for the altitude that you might be at or using the generator at. And it's always a good idea to keep your stuff organized, as this will always help assembly process go much quicker and smoother. Go ahead and replace the mixing tube. And then you're going to go ahead and install the new jet, or the appropriate one for your situation. Hold it in place with your finger while you get your screwdriver. And now just slide the screwdriver into place as you slide your finger out of the way. Now when installing these brass jets, it's a good idea to go backwards lefty-loosey to seat it, and then go ahead and go righty-tighty to tighten the jet down into the pickup tube. Stripping these could mean disaster and could cause a small job and turn it into a big job. And when you finally tighten these all the way down, just get it snug, and about 1/8 of a turn is all you need, as you can strip these or even snap them. Now here is that O-ring I was talking about, and since it goes up there, it's kind of a loose fit, and if you put it on top of the fuel cup, they just kind of slide off. So using something like dielectric grease is a great item to have. I use this stuff all over the place, and it's easy to apply. Just put it in between your fingers and then pull the O-ring around and through until you get a light coat all the way around it. This won't hurt anything, as if there is any residue, it'll just dissolve in the fuel. Now this makes the O-ring sticky, and you can put it on top of the fuel cup and now install both into place, which now the O-ring can just stay right there. As you see here, as we slide it up into position, this will keep the O-ring in place, and now we can get our bolt to install and hold the fuel cup into place. Giving it just a slight twist is a nice idea to help seat it, but make sure that none of the O-ring is sticking out later, as that will cause a leak. Now we have to reinstall that 12mm bolt, and this is where that shallower socket with a stop would come in handy, but since my finger's already in place and I've kind of done this stuff before, I can just use both of my fingers to get it started, and then I'll go ahead and grab that 12mm socket. Now in tightening this, make sure you pay attention to the fuel cup and that it's seating properly and evenly, and also that the black O-ring isn't being squished out anywhere. Once you get this kind of snug, you can rotate the fuel cup into the position and make sure that that screw is facing outward, and the little notch in the cup up top is kind of lined up with the notch that is actually on the carburetor. It doesn't have to be perfect, but that's about where the alignment is. And then again, just like the Jet, just make it nice and snug, and that's it, and we can go ahead and install this plunger. Now the plunger needle needs to go up inside the center of that bolt, and then the little clip has to go underneath the forks of that little lever. And this might take a couple times, but after you feel it seat into position, you'll feel the needle go up, and then that's about it. Now you want to take it and wiggle it around a little bit to make sure it seats into place. Activate the plunger once or twice to make sure it is correctly installed. Then we can get those two screws and the little metal bracket, and now install this by hand, and we can snug it up in a minute. Now, much like the Jet and the main bolt, just get this snug and then give it about an 1/8 to maybe a 1/4 turn to finally snug it all the way down, as again, these can strip or break easily as well. Activate the plunger a few times to make sure it's correct. Then we can go ahead and install the cable. The little black stopper will go into the little lever actuator, and then the cable into the slot. Make sure it's pushed in all the way to where the cable is in the center. And then go ahead and activate this a couple times on the selector switch to make sure it functions properly. Reinstall the carburetor drain hose and also the airbox cover, and now we can take it outside for a test. Okay, now we have to test out our generator, so go ahead and turn on the fuel, let that sit for a little bit, for about maybe about a minute. We're going to let this fill up with fuel, that way we can see if there's any leaks. If there's a leak, then either the O-ring was not placed correctly, or you have a bad seal somewhere and you may have to redo it. But so far we don't see any leaks, so we'll go ahead and fire it up and make sure it runs properly. Okay, now that we're finished with jetting the carburetor, the question is, do you really need to? Now, I'm at 550 feet as far as my elevation, but if I was at 0 to go up to 3,500 feet, I would probably not rejet it, as it would work just fine in those conditions. You'll lose a little bit of fuel efficiency and a pinch of performance, as it will be running just a little bit rich. But if you're going up and down constantly from those elevations, the generator will still perform good enough for most people's needs, as long as you're not running it probably at max loads. Now, if you are going to be using this at, say, consistently at 2,000 feet and above, then it would be a good idea to rejet. Another benefit to having a dual fuel generator, running propane is great because there is no rejetting involved. So if you wanted to use this, say 0 to 3,000 feet, and then above that just using propane only, that would actually be a great idea, because then you don't have to worry about the jetting. Now, you still are going to lose power, because every time you go up in elevation about 1,000 feet, you lose 3% of your power. And that's regardless whether you're using gasoline or if you're using propane. But I hope the video helped you guys out. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.